Not everyone has fruit trees going in their yards. So what do I do to make sure that I have enough fruit stored for my family to put on my pantry shelves? I dehydrate it or I freeze it. So today we're going to be doing both. We're going to be doing berries in two ways, where I walk through how I dehydrate berries and use them, and also how I freeze them to get ready to use in everyday meals. So here we go. We have all of the strawberries and the triple berry blend, which is basically strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries that you can get from the freezer section of your store, but I buy it in bulk when it's on sale and ready, and then I make for myself. And in case we haven't met, I'm Darcy from the Purposeful Pantry, and I want to be your dehydrating BFF, where I teach you all the ways that you can store food for your family on your pantry shelves to use whenever you need them. Okay, so we're going to work with our strawberries now. What I do is I take my strawberry huller, which I absolutely love, and I go through here and I pull out the greens, put them in a bowl because they are good. And I've got a video that I'll show you right here. It'll be up here in the iCards about all the things to do with these strawberry tops. You don't want to throw them away. Now, if I was going to do strawberries just for smoothies and I wasn't going to do anything else, I might not even bother to hull these, because I would just chop them up in a couple pieces and freeze them and get them ready for what we generally use them for in the frozen state like that, is for smoothies. Keep the greens in there too, because they're totally edible. And our giant pet rabbit is going to enjoy having some of these fresh greens right off the bat. We don't feed her a lot of fruit, but when it's strawberry day, she gets to have a bit of a treat. She gets the tops with that little bit of strawberry at the bottom of it, and she's a happy camper. Okay, now to get these ready to go into the freezer, that's what this first batch is going to be. I just cut these down into manageable pieces. I don't want them terribly large, because going into the smoothie, it makes it easier if they are cut smaller. So now we're getting ready to put these on a tray to help freeze them. Now this is a process called flash freezing, and I know there's another version of this that happens in the commercial industry that's a little different, but for home preservationists, this is considered something called flash freezing. When you put things on a tray, get them flat, freeze them before you put them into your bags to get ready to put in the freezer permanently. So these are a little bit more than what I have room for on this tray, but I'm out of trays and I've got to let everything freeze first and transfer it over before I do another one. Preservation season is the one season I really wish I had space to hold more trays when I start needing to do this process, but got to work with what I've got. So we're gonna put these in just like this. And the benefit of doing a flash freeze is when you have them all frozen on their own individual little space, they don't stick to. Okay, as you can see, I've already started on this. What I'm doing for most of my strawberries is I'm going to make strawberry pieces, which are easier for us to integrate into our diets and what we do, like for breakfast and for meals. So, and it makes it a whole heck of a lot faster to get these dried. So here's how I do it. Then I cut larger strawberries down, put them in face down, and then just push them through, just like this. And I have small little strawberry pieces. They're going to dry quickly. They're going to rehydrate more quickly. They're going to be easier to chew, especially if you have dental issues, and that works that way. So a tip I wanted to give you when doing this, you might see that some is still stuck here. It's fine. You don't have to try to get it out. The next round you go through here, you cut your strawberry down, place them in just like this. And when you push these through, it's going to push that last batch down, and you're going to have this. It's only the last batch that you have to worry about trying to pull these out that last minute. So I'm just going to get started on doing these. It's going to take a little bit to get through all of these, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all done. This does end up looking like a bit of a crime scene with all of the strawberry juice by the time I'm finished with this, but I'll be grateful. Later Darcy will be grateful that earlier Darcy did the work. I am going to take each of, like, a big scoop of the strawberry pieces that we created. You can see right here. And I'm going to start letting them strain, because the pressure on them is going to make them release some juice. And we want to save the juice for something else. I'm going to let them strain for a little while before I start putting them onto my dehydrator trays. Then as they've strained as much as they're going to strain, I'm going to take them and start spreading them out onto my dehydrator trays. I am going to give them space. A lot of times I'll tell you some things do not have, you can just pile them on. With these, I do want to give them a little bit of space because they're going to need it so they're not stuck together, and they will dry better and faster. They will shrink, but because of the sugars in here that have been active, you know, everything getting all riled up, they are going to start releasing a lot more sugars, which will make them stick more. So just giving them some space will do wonders. You can choose to use parchment paper for this. They will release a little liquid during the drying time, but I have a tray at the bottom of my machine that's just super easy to clean afterwards. There is our first tray going into the dehydrator. Now the next tray we're gonna do are our strawberry tops. Yes, you can dehydrate these. Yes, you can dry them just like this. You might see that some of them have a little bit bigger piece of strawberry on them than others. Some have very little at all. Don't worry about it, it's gonna be fine. You can either powder this for green powder. The little bit of sweetness that comes from this is not gonna affect your green powder all that much. I do it for teas. I will stick this in with my tea as it's brewing to give it a little strawberry. You know, if you have rabbits like we do, or other animals that might like this, like chickens and stuff, this would be a great way to preserve it for the next year. Now we're going to make our triple berry powder. I take scoops of raspberries, blueberries. If I have blackberries, I'll use them. It's whatever I happen to have for a berry, and then the rest of our strawberries. So we're just gonna get started with this. We're gonna fill up a good chunk of this with raspberries and blueberries. Let's just stick some strawberries in there, and I'm not gonna bother cutting these down, they won't need it. What we're doing is we're creating a berry puree that's gonna make things dry a lot faster, and it's gonna make things easier to powder later. And as I have more space, I will add more to it. So now what we're going to do is pour this into our trays. You can shake it up and just do this and get it to spread, or you can take something like a spatula or an offset spatula like you would use for icing and just make it move just as quickly that way. We want a very thin coat of this because what we want is for it to dry like crackers. We really want it to be thin and crisp. Here we go here. I'm going to take a little bit off. I can just scoop it out like this, put it back into my bin, and make a big mess because, yes, of course, moving too quickly, just like that. I can spread this back out a little more. We want a good thin layer of fruit. Lots more to go. And I'll just shake this down a little bit. Does not have to be perfect. And you'll see here, I'm using a tray that does not have a lip, and that's okay. You don't need them. If where your dehydrator sits is so uneven that it would flow, I put too much in there. Well, let's take some of that off. I know that's going to be way too much. Where your dehydrator is uneven and your tray may tip over a little bit and make this flow to the edges, then I can see that you might want to have a lip on it, but it's really not necessary. I'm just careful about not pushing this all the way to the edge. And here we go, next round. All right, so now we have all of our trays in the dehydrator. We have our strawberry bits, our strawberry leaves, the beginnings of all of our strawberry puree, which is going to take a second dehydrator to get going, but I'm going to get this one started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this. Typically, fruits you would set at 135. However, strawberries tend to be high sugar content, so I like to set it just a little bit lower at 125 or even lower if you have the time. And then as far as the time, I just set this out so far ahead because it doesn't matter the time. It's whether the stuff is dry or not whether the timer's gone off. So I just set it up, just let it go, and we're gonna get started. Okay, to get ready for this next phase, we're looking at storage now. So I don't want to vacuum seal the fruit that I'm going to freeze because I use it all the time and I don't want to waste the vacuum seal packages. So what I usually have is some of these already set up, but over time they have gotten tossed from being overly used. So what I tend to do for freezer bags, I double bag because freezer bags aren't the same as they used to be, and they need a little extra. So I double bag these things up to get ready to put things in. And what I don't want to do is have my fruit sitting out here starting to thaw while I'm trying to get bags ready. So this is just what I do. And ultimately why I'm doing this is to allow me to mix these up so that there's a good mixture. Kind of like I did on this tray. And I do have some clumps, but they're relatively easy to pull apart with my finger at this point. And because I want to save my fingers, I'm going to use a glass to help me do this. Just because after a while, this is going to get pretty full pretty quickly. All right, there we go. There is our first pack down. Get a better Sharpie. Get them back in the freezer, ready for our next round of smoothies. Okay, we've had about, I don't know, maybe 18 hours of this drying because I want to make sure it was good and dry. Now, when I did these strawberries, they were a little bit on the riper side than what I typically do when I dry these. So there was lots and lots and lots of moisture. And I should have done a little better job of spreading them out to let them drain before I put them on the trays, but that's fine because we're going to deal with what's here. So here are my sheets of all the strawberry bits. And a lot of it is sticking together, kind of like a fruit leather, sort of, but it's okay because I can just sit and tear these apart. I'm not going to have the bits that I usually get, which is just the individual pieces, like when I do the apples. It's still going to work in my oatmeal. It's still going to work in tea if I wanted to do it that way. So this isn't a fail as much as it, did it turn out like exactly like I wanted? No, it didn't. But I kind of knew that going in because they were overly wet. I'm going to work with what I got. So just like with fruit leather, I can just roll this up and get it broken up some. And so I'm going to store these in, I think it's not going to do a 1.5 size jar. We're just going to stick in this quart jar. And if I have to downsize the jar, I can do that. But as I'm putting it in, I'm just going to break up pieces so that they're a little smaller. And the reason they're sticking even to this mesh is because of the sugars that are in here. Because again, a little bit overripe. So how to use these? If you want to use them in bread, just throw a handful in. Use them in oatmeal. Throw a handful in as you're cooking your oatmeal. It will rehydrate while you're doing it so that by the time it's time to eat, it will have rehydrated into a smaller piece that's easier to chew than a bigger slice that sometimes can be kind of difficult for people. And so that's all you have to do to use these. If you want to rehydrate them ahead of time, before you put them in your breads to make sure that it doesn't absorb any of the moisture from your bread, that's fine too. You can do it whatever way works for you. Okay, so here's our next phase. We're going to condition. I'm using an old lid. Take these and shake the jar once a day, every day. Check it for things sticking to the top that don't shake off easily, like if any of these pieces were sticking up to the top. You may see little tiny pieces, like right here. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Some really tiny small pieces here. That's static. That's not a big deal. But if you have bigger pieces that are sticking to the side that don't come off easily with a shake, or this begins to clump hard in the middle and you can't break that up, then it's time to go back in the dehydrator. But to remember that this is all the naturally occurring sugars that will make this tend to be a little more clumpy than normal. So just use your best judgment for that. If I was looking at two pieces sticking together, I wouldn't be concerned about it. If I was seeing a larger clump, then I would say, yeah, probably should put it back. The other option, if you're really concerned, is that you can just go ahead and store this in the freezer and just pull out as much as you need when you need it. That's a viable option too if you're just concerned about your humidity levels in your home or any of those kind of things. Humidity shouldn't affect your jar when it's closed. The issue is when you open your jar and you leave it open, taking stuff out, putting stuff back in, close your lid, you've now trapped more humidity in here. Over time, that may create a problem. So use a moisture absorber in here if you'd like to help contain whatever moisture that's introduced into this as you open a jar. It is not meant to stop the process of this drying. Important to remember that. Moisture absorbers deal with the added humidity from opening the jars all the time versus trying to finish the drying process of your food. That's not how they're to be used. So there you go. There's the first step of storing our strawberries. Okay, so here are our tops. Just like this, I'm going to just gently roll this a little bit to release them with the fruit part on the bottom that kind of stuck a little bit. There we go. There's our strawberry greens, little strawberry bits at the bottom. I just toss these in a jar, just like this. Okay, so now it's time to make some tea. This is what I would do with my strawberry tops when I'm making tea. I can use either a bag that I normally use and stick it in here, but what I have is this tea brewer. It's a little cup that is a mesh cup that you can, it's like a fine mesh strainer that you can put in, and I can either put this in with my bag right here, put this over the top, and put my leaves in here just like that. Or what I'm going to do today is use the Harney & Sons Emerald Isles tea, which is a tea that I got in Houston the last time I was there. And I was there just a couple of weeks ago to go see Space Center Houston because I'm a geek that way. And the friends that I go see, we went to a tea shop and bought a lot of tea and split it so we could both try all the different ones. So the Emerald Isle is a mint blend with some other spices in it. I don't have the list here anymore, but it's a really good tea. I like mine a little strong, so I just put it in there with it, and then I can brew it just like I would brew tea any other time for me. And let it brew just like that, and the strawberry will blend in with that strawberry mint, go well together. So here's my tea. Let's get on to the next thing we're working on. And I'll transfer these over to a larger size jar as soon as I can get them out of storage. But these are strawberry tops. I'm going to have a video right here where you can see all the ways that you can use these and how else to use them. So you can just go visit that when you're ready. It's time for a tea break. So remember that we dried these in order to be thin and breakable, not to be pliable like a fruit leather. They can work that way. I mean, you can totally eat this if you want, but we're looking for brittle fruit leather just like this. We want that. That dry is necessary for creating powders and for storage, and we don't have to worry about things getting sticky in the end. And it just makes doing powder so much easier. So what I'm doing is taking all of these off. And what I can do is just roll this off. I don't need big pieces. I'm not looking for that. But if I roll it, I can break it down and it'll come off a little easier. And I know I have like 9 more of these trays to do that we're not going to do on camera, but I would typically then put it in a large jar. But because I'm going to be processing through some of this, I'm using a quart-sized jar. And I'm taking each of these pieces and just breaking them up. I don't need big pieces. I'm not looking for big, huge things for fruit leather. And I'm just going to start shoving these in my jar just like this, because I would prefer to store in whole pieces like this than powder, because it will last longer than a powder will. The more you process through something, the more you're exposing all of the edges to moisture and oxygen and all those things. So it's better to store it in whole as much as you can until the point of powder. Get ready for the powder. Start putting these pieces in to make powder. You get to see it from the start. Don't do it that way. I hit the right button. We want to pulse. What we want to do is let it go up, get the blades, break it down, let it come back down. And keep doing that over and over again, because what we don't want to do is just grind this so hard that it starts making all of the powder push down to the bottom, and the heat starts making it all clump up hard. And then what we're going to do is take this, pull it out, and this is when I strain for seeds, because to me this is infinitely easier than the other way around. Now when you look in here, you're going to see it's not completely powdered. We still have some bits of it, but what I want to do is get out the bulk of the powder that's created so far. When I notice it didn't powder up enough, then I'm going to put this back in. And we'll do some more. Now, if you have a large blender that can do this a little more efficiently for you, use it by all means. Mine is still in the dishwasher wet from having been cleaned from yesterday, so it's not the appropriate thing to make a powder in, because it's still damp and I didn't get it clean. I meant dried out in time, so I'm fine with that. We'll just do it the way we got to do it. That's kind of how preservation works. Once again, strain it. And as you can see here, what I've got mostly in there is some fruit leather pieces, but what you're seeing a lot of is the raspberry seeds and the blueberry seeds, because they contain a ton of seeds. But here's our final product. This is triple berry powder: strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. So when I'm brewing tea, I could also put some of this powder in with my loose tea if I wanted to do this, or put it in there before and do a bag. That'll work as well. What you can also do with this is put it in yogurt, mix it up, and have really great tasting yogurt. You can sprinkle it and mix it in with cream cheese to make a cream cheese topping for muffins. You can put this into bread making so that what you're getting is a little bit of sugar, all the fruit flavor, all the fiber, and it will turn the color of your breads into a little, like maybe pink, depending on what kind of fruit that you're using to change colors. There are so many ways that you can use this powder, and it's so good. And I'm not going to make you watch me do them all, but because I've got more and more trays of this going, I'm going to go ahead and get this into, see, it's already starting to, just the humidity in our air is already getting it to just puff up a little bit. All right, so I am not going to do it now. I'm going to do it later when I'm done with everything. What you can do is, if in your home it is super humid and you've still got a lot of this powder that you're working with, you notice it's starting to clump a little bit, you can condition the powder, which means you put it back onto a dehydrator tray, to put it back into your dehydrator to allow it to dry just a little bit more so that it stops clumping so much. But this was really sugary fruit, so that sugar is going to just like absorb all the moisture that's in the air. Or you can do it like I do it. I will take a tray, an oven tray that you can use, get out of the way, and I will do this. I will put this in the bottom. This is just a fruit leather sheet that I would use in my dehydrator. You can use parchment paper, whatever you like, and I will pour the powder out. And I will put it into my oven that is warmed, not hot. You want to like maybe set it at the lowest possible temperature that you can do, turn it on for a little bit, let it get warm inside, turn it back off. Do not leave the heat on, and then put this inside your oven just like this after it's spread out a little bit. And what you're doing is you're letting whatever little bit of moisture might still be there kind of get taken care of. Then you leave it in there for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15, not long. It's not like you have to do this for a long time. You pull it out and go ahead and store it. So then the next thing, when you pull it out, you might notice the top is kind of cakey. Like when you touch it, it's compacted. All you have to do is just break it up and it's fine. It's something that it does in the heat. So we're going to put this back into, pretend like we did this. I'm not going to bother doing it until I'm done with all the powders, which is why I'm not putting it in right now. But I have more and more trays of this to finish up. So I pour my powder into a jar that I'm going to use that's the right size for how much I'm going to store. But remember, I'm about to put more in here, so this is not the appropriate size. But this is what I would do then. Once I've got it inside, I'm done with everything else. I do use a moisture absorber. I don't use them often, but in this case, for fruit powders, it's what I do the most. So my jar of moisture absorbers, this goes right inside, and a lid and a ring on top to store it. And then I still shake it a lot. I make sure that I'm shaking it up quite a bit because these can clump pretty easily, which is why I also recommend changing the size of your jar as you use your powder down. Change the size of your jar down. You don't want all this extra air and moisture that might be in here. All right, so how long does any of this last? Well, my fruit, I usually never keep more than 3 months because I just cycle through so quickly. But usually frozen fruit can last for 1 to 2, up to 3 years, depending on how well you packaged it and what your circumstances are in your freezer. So fruit over time can get freezer burn pretty easily, but it will still keep. Now, can you take that frozen fruit and make jam from it? You sure can. Okay, so that's another way to preserve when you're producing from your garden. You can get all that stuff, process it, freeze it, and have it ready available to can at another time of year when you have more time to do it. For the strawberry bits like this, 1 to 2 years. The others, still 1 to 2 years. The powders, I usually never leave these more than 6 months. I try to get through this pretty quickly because over time, they just start to lose their oomph. The leaves, we've had these last 2 years. So there you go. If you want to learn more about how to do something like blackberries, I'll leave this video for you right here where I go through that whole same process. So until I see you next time, remember, nevertheless, she preserves. And get started, folks. Happy dehydrating.